Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jivanaka Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jivanaka Yasodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Yamuna Tera Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Hare Krishna, good morning. We will read from Srimad Bhagavatam this morning, 10th canto, chapter 87, the prayers of the personified Vedas, text 3. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jamudiyayat Nasvesya Bhadresya Nityam Bharata Sevyam Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhakti Naistike Sheshayi Upanishad Brahmi Purvesham Purvachetrita Shradaya Darayatyastam Shemam Kachat Akinchana Sheshayi Upanishad Brahmi Purvesham Purvachetrita Shradaya Darayatyastam Shemam Kachat Akinchana Sheshayi Upanishad Brahmi Purvasham Purvacharitam Shradaya Dayatyastam Shemam Gachat Akinchana Shesai Upanishad Brahmi Purvasham Purvacharitam Dayatyastam Shemam Gachat Akinchana Shesai Upanishad Brahmi Purvasham Purvacharitam Shradaya Dayatyastam Shemam Gachat Akinchana Mataji. Shesai Upanishad Brahmi Purvasham Purvacharitam Shradaya Dayatyastam Shemam Gachat Akinchana Shesai Upanishad Brahmi Purvasham Purvacharitam Shradaya Dayatyastam Shemam Gachat Akinchana Radha Gopinath ki Kaumita ki Baldev Subhadra ki Word for word translation. Sha Esha, this same, he, indeed, Upanishad, confidential spiritual doctrine, Brahmi, related to the absolute truth, Purvasham, of our predecessors, such as Narad, Purvajai, by the predecessors, such as Sanaka, Tripta, meditated upon, Shraddhaya, with faith, Dharayat, meditates, Yaha, whoever, Tam, upon it, Shemam, ultimate success, Gachat, will attain, Akinshanaha, free from material connection. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Those who came before even our ancient predecessors meditated upon this same confidential knowledge of the Absolute Truth. Indeed, anyone who faithfully concentrates on this knowledge will become free from material attachment and attain the final goal of life. Purport. This confidential knowledge concerning the absolute truth should not be doubted, since it has been passed down through authoritative lines of learned sages from time immemorial. One who cultivates the science of the Supreme with reverence, avoiding the distractions of fruitive rituals and mental speculation, will learn to give up the false designations of material body and mundane society, and thus he will become eligible for perfection. In the opinion of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, the first two verses of this chapter can be considered an Upanishad on the topic of Brahman. Sukadeva Goswami here disclaims authorship on the grounds that this Upanishad was spoken previously by Narada Muni, who himself heard it from Sanat Kumar. Om Ajnana Timandasya Shanam Shanam Shanakaya Chakshunritam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Shvam Rupakadhamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shigo Shiula Padakamanam Shiom Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Jagajatam Saganaraka Pragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Samlutam Parjana Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Saganalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jatpate Gopesha Goptakanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kansana Gauravhi Radhe Vrindavanashtre Prishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamama Hare Priye Bankra Kalptabhisha Kripa Simbevisha Platanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavanya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Srinyavadi Paskachani Dasatani Srila Prabhupada Ki. The prayers of the personified Vedas, a new chapter. It's the biggest chapter of the 10th canto that in Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada explains this chapter. If one understands this chapter, one will be able to defeat the 6 atheistic philosophies, the subduction, and that should be a qualification for someone to sit on the Vyasasana. They can defeat these 6 atheistic philosophy. But anyway, if we have time at the end, I can explain more about these 6 darshans and why they are atheistic. But here we have in the beginning, it starts with a question that the absolute truth is transcendental, is beyond the purview of our senses. So how can it be described by words? That's the question of Maharaj Pariksit. We will see in this chapter, like many times in the Bhagavatam, it's a story within a story within a story within a story. So the Bhagavatam is spoken by Sutta Goswami to the sages of Naimisaranya, because he was one of the hearers when Sukadeva Goswami spoke the Bhagavatam to Maharaj Pariksit, that So Maharaj Parikshit here is asking a question in the beginning. How can the absolute truth be understood by words? How can it be described by the Vedas? These are words. And words from this world. How can we understand? And Sukadev Goswami will say, yes, before Narada Muni had the same question. He asked the same questions to Narayana Rishi. But Narayana Rishi, he replied to Narada Muni that many ages before someone asked the same question at Sanaloka, the sage of Sanaloka, at a festival by they have different festivals than us. That it's called here. One of our acharyas explains the residents of Janaloka performed a great sacrifice of the absolute truth by vibrating transcendental sound. That was their festival. But of course, residents of Janaloka, that we know there's Ambur, Bhuva, Swan, the earthly planets, the heavenly planets, the lower planets. But then you have still higher planets. That the highest planet is Satyaloka, Brahmaloka. But just below you have Janaloka, Tapaloka, Marloka. These are planets where great liberated sages live. So, and they had a discussion. Sridhar Swami said each of these sages in Janaloka, they could speak equally well on the topic of Brahman. But they choose one speaker, that Sanandana, and Sri Sanandana will say at the time of the next creation, because next creation of Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is in his yogic slumber, yoga nidra, and the Vedas personified comes and wake him up. The Shrutis, they are called. They wake him up, so-called, by reciting the Shrutis. What is Shruti? What is Smriti? Someone knows what is Shruti? What to be heard. Yeah. These are Shruti means what is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And Smriti is remembrance. These are the commentaries of great sages on the great sages who comment on they comment on the Vedas. So these commentaries, they are also there in the form of Upanishads, that each Veda has Upanishads, and that these Upanishads are very puzzling, enigmatic. That like you have we traditionally study Sri is Upanishad, and there it is, the Lord walks and does not walk. So that's very puzzling. It needs a commentary, an explanation that usually, yes, these Upanishads are difficult to understand. And it is said here that our commentator says these first 3 verses of this chapter are like an Upanishad that so what is the question? How does this chapter start? The question is these Shrutis, which are the Vedas, or the words spoken by the Supreme Lord, they are directed toward the senses. How can they speak using direct meaning of words about Brahman? How can they express something spiritual with words? And it's, we know Lord Krishna is the purpose of the Vedas. Vedasa sarvam amiva vedya, vedantakrit vedavite vachaham. I'm to be known by the Vedas, Krishna says. That I'm compiler of the Vedas. I'm the knower of the Vedas. But Krishna is transcendental. He has transcendental qualities. He has no connection with the material modes. So that's the issue here. That, but of course, it's also stated in the Bhagavatam, also in Bhagavad Gita. One who worships Krishna becomes similarly free from the modes. Interesting. But in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says also to Arjuna, the Vedas deal with the subject of the material modes. So rise above these modes. Be transcendental to all these modes. Be free from all the dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. So in the 11th canto, we have the Uddhav Gita. Uddhav Gita is also spoken by Krishna, because we say Smriti are the commentaries. Smriti are the Upanishads, Smriti is the Mahabharata, the epics, the Puranas, that are all Smriti. That, of course, Mahabharata is Smriti, but there's a part Shruti within it. Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna directly speaks. And similarly, the Bhagavatam, which is transcendental literature. We will come to the Bhagavatam later. But that's transcendental. And that, so the Bhagavatam, there also Krishna, Bhagavatam is about Krishna. But also Krishna speaks many times in the Bhagavatam, especially the Uddhav Gita in the 11th canto. And there, in the Uddhav Gita, Krishna says, surrender. One who surrenders to me is beyond the gunas. You have to be beyond the gunas to understand Krishna. Of course, he says there also, I'm only obtained by bhakti. I can only be understood by bhakti. Also in Bhagavad Gita. The Lord is supreme and is attained by pure bhakti only. That, so yes, this is the topic that will be discussed here. These Shrutis are the Vedas, personified Vedas. And that, so we have, that is discussed in Shanaloka, that these sages were very peaceful on Janaloka, and there all these sages of Janaloka appointed Sananda to speak on their behalf. And Sunanda is speaking the Vedas, the Shrutis, and is speaking from the Uttara portion of the Brahmopanishad. So that is what we will hear in this chapter. That Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that so the Shrutis were teaching the Lord, although the Lord knows everything, because of their enthusiasm for the meaning of the prayers about him. So Krishna does not, or they are speaking, this Shrutis, to wake up Mahavishnu, Karnodakashaya Vishnu, from his yoga nidra slumber. That it's like Swayambhuva Manu. It's interesting. His lifestyle is explained as a devotee. Is the emperor. And when he wakes up in the morning, his servants, they are reciting, they are reciting all pastimes of the Lord when he gets up. That was always nice. If you want to be Krishna conscious, if you wake up, it's advised. The first thing we do is we offer our respect to our spiritual master and Prabhupada, and then we meditate on Krishna. And Prabhupada says in the evening we should read Krishna book. Then in the morning you remember. So before going to sleep, I mean, and then in the morning when you get up, the first thing you remember was what you did yesterday. So you remember that. That's also a way. But Swayambhava Muni, he was hearing the pastimes when he opened his eyes, and that. Of course, Swayambhuva Manu, he had a gorgeous deity worship, very opulent, and every day his servants would perform a drama of the Lord pastimes. So every day a festival, and that is Krishna consciousness. Every day is a festival. Every day we see the deities, always different. And so beautiful, and but of course they were reciting the Vedas, but the Lord does not need to hear is the Vedas. So it's described here like bards awaken a sleeping king with excellent words indicating his possessions of all extraordinary powers without compare. So they praise the king to get his mercy. This is what we will learn from this chapter. That it's a very philosophical chapter. It's described as like an Upanishad. What are the Upanishads? The Upanishads is the transcendental knowledge related to the Vedas. There are 4 Vedas. That's Atharva Veda, Rig Veda, Sama Veda, and Yajur Veda. 4 Vedas. And each Vedas has 4 parts. The first part are the hymns. So when Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas describe only mainly only the 3 modes of nature. Interesting. That but Vedas means these hymns. But these hymns were always, they were recited during Vedic sacrifices, big yajnas. And they had to be pronounced very correctly to get the results. And therefore, the second part are the first is the Samhita, the hymns, and the second part is called Brahmanas. Has nothing to do with Brahmins, but Brahmanas here means that they are the same text of the Samhita with with connotations. How to pronounce it correctly. But traditionally, the Vedas, they were then, these Vedas were pronounced during sacrifices, Vedic sacrifices. They were the solemn sacrifice, a very big sacrifice, and it takes a month to build just the Jagya arena, to put it up. There are so many rules with golden and so on. And then the Vedas would be pronounced, would be chanted by, there would be 5 priests, and they have a name, all these priests. One priest was specialized in the Atharva Veda, one in the Rig Veda, one in the Yajur Veda, one in the Sama Veda. And they would recite the Vedas. But we have a 5th priest, and that's the Brahma priest. The Brahma priest, he knows the 4 Vedas, and his function is to correct other priests when they make an error. It's a whole setup. But all this sacrifice, how to perform this sacrifice for each of the Vedas was described in the Aranyaka. That's the 3rd part of the Vedas. Aranyaka. Aranya means forest, because it describes every practical details about the Jagya, which spoon to use, which mantras to utter at which moment, how to purify, so many things. And that is the Aranyaka. And then the 4th part is the Upanishad. We have more than 108 Upanishads, I think. When I studied it at the university, it was about 158 they came up with, according to tradition, 108, but each Upanishad is related to a certain Veda, and the Upanishad gives the transcendental knowledge. And that is what we are speaking about here. Because transcendental knowledge, the question is, how can we understand the absolute truth, which is beyond the purview of our senses? and words are material. How can we understand it? So one of the 6 darshans is, the first is Nyaya, the school of logic. That it focuses on logic, they call it also, academics call it epistemology, hermeneutics, method how to get knowledge, reasoning. So in the Nyaya school, they come up with different methods. I mentioned just a few. First is pratyaksha. Pratyaksha is knowledge gathered by sense perception. The scientists today, that's their thing. But we can perceive and what we can research with our senses, that exists. And that is, but that's not a way to know the absolute truth. Because absolute truth is beyond the reach of our material intelligence. But then there is inference, anuman, by reasoning, coming to a conclusion that. But our reasoning is only related to what we know in this world. So by reasoning, you can come to the point of concluding, I'm not his body. But what I am, you cannot know. It's not possible. That this is Anuman, by intelligence, by reasoning. That you have others. Upaman means like comparison and so on. But the Vedas, they use another method. That's Sabda Brahman, transcendental sound vibration. Like the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Kolokera prima dana. Nautam Das Thakur said this Harinam, this holy name, comes from Golok. It's imported. That it's transcendental. And so Sabda Brahman is different than material sound vibration. And the Shrutis, they are all spoken by the Lord. The Shrutis are just repeating it. So they are transcendental by nature. But the problem with this Nyaya philosophy is because they say that liberation comes from correct knowledge. But we have just to remove our ignorance. And that's also a point of the Vedas. We see in the spiritual world, it's said in Bhagavad Gita, there is no need of sun, no need of moonlight, that everything is there, self-effulgence, because Krishna is presence, everything is self-effulgence. Krishna is known as Makanchor, the butter thief. And the butter was kept before, because dairy products, now we keep that in the fridge, but I told you ago there was no fridge. They had a special place in the center of the house, as cool as possible. And they kept the butter there and so on. For that, and Krishna was coming to steal, but it was dark. but he could see everything because he was so effulgent that the whole place was full of light. But what the material world, if there is no sun or moon, it's dark. That dense darkness. And what is the nature of this transcendental knowledge? Divyagan rete pokasito. Is Divyagan rete pokasito. The heart becomes enlightened just by this knowledge. It takes away our ignorance. So the Nyayas say you take away the ignorance by knowledge and you become liberated. But there is a big problem with that philosophy. Because they don't speak about Krishna, about God, it's just logic. But what is their idea of liberation? What is factual liberation? That's described in the Bhagavatam, in the second canto. But before I reveal it, maybe someone knows what's liberation?
Not anymore bounded to your passion.
Not anymore bound by this material world, by attachment, no attachment, detached. That's one definition. So that's it.
No more fear, no more suffering.
No more fear, no more suffering, liberation. Yes. Pure love of God, different definition. That there's a definition given by Sukadev Goswami in the second canto, chapter 10, text 6. Definition of liberation. Muktir itvanyata rupam svarupena vyavastitihi. Liberation is the permanent situation in the form of the living entity after it gives up the changeable gross and subtle material bodies. What is that permanent situation? Is going to the Brahmajyoti a permanent situation? No, the Bhagavatam says, Yev Arvindaksha Vimuktamaninas Vastabhava Visuddha Buddhaya Aruna Krishna Prampatam Tatam Tatyam Chapam. Forget the last line, but it means that those impersonalists, they think they are liberated. Vimuktamaninas, but their intelligence is impure. It's impure. Because with great difficulty, they attain liberation, so-called. They enter the Brahmajyoti. But they will fall down from that position. It's not a permanent situation. What's the permanent situation? What's our natural condition? Is to revive our spiritual body, our svarup. It's called svarupena, svarup. That's our spiritual body, and go back to the spiritual world. That is liberation, Sukadev Goswami says. Not merging with the Brahmajyoti, that's just a temporary thing. They may be there for a few millions of years, but the soul wants to be active. It wants to serve. That there is no possibility to serve. Therefore, for devotees, such liberation is hellish. They don't want it. But yes, Nyaya philosophy says, just correct knowledge, you remove your ignorance, and you are liberated. Of course, that's the power of transcendental knowledge. But one must hear the complete transcendental knowledge, not just about Brahman, I'm not a body, but also who we are. We are a servant of Krishna, part and parcel of Krishna. And it's natural for us, because what the soul wants to love and be loved. You will attain that in the Brahma Jyoti, in isolation? No. No. You have to come back. This love and be loved, we realize in our relationship with Krishna. And therefore, we need our Svarup. Svarup means that knowing our relationship with Krishna, that's called Sambandha Jnana. That knowledge we require. Not just the knowledge by logic, I'm not a body and so on. That it's a philosophy invented by Gautama, that is Nyaya. Of course, transcendental knowledge is very powerful. I was just reading this morning, I tried to read as much as verses and purpose of Bhagavad Gita every morning after the japa. And I was entering the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And that 13th chapter discusses six subjects: Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Prakriti Purush, and Prakriti Purush, and Jnanam, Jnanam. And Prabhupada writes, one who understands the field of activities, which is the body, and the knower of the field, which is the soul, and one who understands Jnanam, the super soul, is to be known in the soul, the super soul. But if one understands the relationship between these, one can attain liberation just by the study of this chapter. That's the power of transcendental knowledge. But the transcendental knowledge must be complete. And just by logic, it's not possible. So this is one of the 6 darshans. And if you read this chapter in the Krishna book, that Prabhupada defeats all these 6 darshans, one after another. And we will also hear that here. These shrutis are very clear that of course, when we speak about the Vedas, when Krishna says to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas mainly deal with the modes of material nature, he says. That was also in the first canto, the complaint by Narada Muni. Said to Srila Vyasadeva, if you are not feeling satisfied, why is that? You described all this karma kanda. This karma kanda means how to enjoy in this material world in a pious way and to get more and more enjoyment. Because the previous verse, that we discussed probably Monday, that in that second verse, the purpose of creation was described. Why Krishna creates is to facilitate the facilitate material enjoyment of the conditioned souls who want it. So that's why all these souls came to this material world, to enjoy separate from Krishna. And the Vedas describes how to do that, but in a pious way. That's one purpose of the Vedas, but it's not the only purpose. That it describes also how to get out of it by following the path of Bhakti Yoga. And therefore, Narada Muni said that to Srila Vyasadeva, you described too much this karma kanda, and you did not describe sufficiently the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there is missing a part in all your scriptures. So he ordered them, now you have to write the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is transcendental. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, the study of Bhagavatam, helps us to go back to the spiritual world. That not like this karma kanda, which keep you in this material world. So that makes the Bhagavatam the Amalam Purana, the spotless Purana. It is transcendental, from the first word till the last. So it's higher than the Shrutis. Some say these Puranas are not the Vedas. The Puranas are not the Vedas. But then they are, because I was just studying that, in 3.12.39 Bhagavatam, there it says that, there it's clearly said, the fifth Veda are the Puranas. It's said there that so they are also authentic sources of spiritual knowledge. So these Puranas are as authentic as the four Vedas itself. They are also coming from Lord Brahma, and Puranas means the histories. So who knows the history? Brahma knows the history from the beginning. And he gives us these histories. He has seen everything. So Krishna appears once in the day of Brahma, and many days have already passed, so he can give a lot of historical accounts of Krishna's appearances also in the past. And these are the Puranas. Anyway, we spoke about Nyaya. You have also Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, and then you have Karma Mimamsa and Vedanta. They have all their purposes, but they are by nature atheistic. Also the Vedanta. But the real Vedanta is the Bhakti Vedanta. That's higher. So you have all these philosophies which we will hear further about. It would take a little too long to discuss this. I gave you an idea what Nyaya is, logic. That Vaisheshika means the whole universe, or the whole material manifestation is just about, consists out of atoms, earth, water, fire, air, And we are here because of our karma, and we have to get free from our karma, and then you are liberated. But there is a little more to say. That it's not only liberated from the material condition, that one must take away the cause of the karma. These are material desires. That and a Sankhya, that yeah, it's about this Sankhya is described also in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. That the difference between Purus and Prakriti. The difference, Purus means consciousness, Prakriti means material nature. That and it invents principles of how the universe emanated. That and the only thing what we have to do is realizing that we are different from matter. That's all. But again, that is not real liberation. And yoga, Ashtanga yoga, that Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras. I studied this Yoga Sutras at university. This Yoga Sutras was interesting. And but they think liberation is achieved by pacifying the mind and isolating the self from the material entanglement. That is not what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Yoga is not meant for that. Bhagavad Gita says, Shitatmana prashantatsma Paramatma Samahita. When the mind is peaceful, yes, it's peaceful. All your material desires are gone. That one comes in contact with the super soul. That's the real practice. And then you have Purva Mimamsa. That the Mimamsakas, Krishna uses that philosophy to convince his father that to stop the Indra Jahya and to worship Govardhan instead. He said, we don't need this Indra. That if one performs good karma, then Indra must give the results of that. So Karma Mimamsa says, karma is supreme. There's no such thing as liberation or so on. No. That just you do good karma and you will get good results. That's all. And then of course you have the Vedanta that Vedanta teaches Aham Brahmasmi. You are Brahman, and that's it. And realizing you're Brahman, that's liberation. Again, it's just a stage in the process of re-liberation, going back to the spiritual world. After liberation, you have to realize who you are, and then worship Krishna, develop love for Krishna. And then first realize Krishna in your heart, Paramatma realization. And then coming to the ultimate liberation, one gets one's Swarup, one gets one's relationship with Krishna, and one develops love for Krishna. So this is the beginning of this chapter. I tried to give a bit your little taste of what's going to come in this chapter. It's very fascinating and it's very philosophical. Those who have a philosophical mind, they will find this chapter very exciting. Those who are not so philosophical, they think it's a little too deep. But it's fascinating. And Prabhupada says, if you know this chapter, you can defeat all these philosophies. But if you look at these philosophies, if we know the basics of Krishna consciousness, you can defeat them. Yes, any questions? Yeah, the question is, there are different groups who are practicing various philosophies that, when I was at university, I studied all these. They call it Hindu inspired movements, Western Hindu inspired movements. But most of them are impersonal, practically all of them. And they may accept some of these six darshans as their guidance. Of course, there are exceptions that the Kumaris, there are also other Vaishnava groups which are bona fide, but otherwise, in the Western philosophy, and also that, but of course, we should also respect them because they are bringing people to the point of the first step, liberation from material bondage. But then afterwards, you have to go further. You say many times that the devotees from these groups finally come to our movement to put the next step. That's yes. Anyway, it's not possible for me to go into all these groups. It would also not be appropriate to put that on the internet. But the basic principles are there. Something else?
Where can we go in depth of this chapter? In Srimad Bhagavatam, where can we go in depth of this 87 chapter? Are there some acharyas who will explain more than others?
No. Just read Krishna book, chapter 87 and Prabhupada, he defeats all these philosophies, these six philosophies in detail. It's all there. Just in Krishna book. So in the Bhagavatam, of course, it's verse by verse. It will go a little deeper, but it's just there in Krishna book. I must say that Krishna book was the first book I read, and this chapter 87, I didn't understand much of it the first time because I didn't have the basis of the Bhagavad Gita and so on. That it sounded good, but you also don't know what are these philosophies. But after studying everything, yes, but it's just in Krishna book. You just read the chapter. You need some time because it's a big chapter. It's going deep. It's the biggest chapter in the entire Bhagavatam, I think. Yes.
So, within personal liberation, the personal liberation when someone goes to Brahma and we know that there is no opportunity to serve, and that's why after some time there is the relationship. But I was wondering if there are many souls who are there in the majority, then can they have some interactions or?
Now, Prabhupada explains this, that they enter the Brahmajyoti, and it's such a relief. You come from a material world. It's easy, it's blissful. It's not ananda, but it's blissful and peaceful. And it feels good. It's also described in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Kumar arrived in the Brahmajyoti, and he felt so peaceful, so nice. But the problem is that after a few millions of years feeling peaceful, it's boring. There's nothing to do. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the soul wants action, is active. When it's so active, when it's in the body, how can it be inactive outside the body? So it wants action, it wants this relationship. And what the soul wants the relationship with Krishna. That's the point. Not temporary relationships like in this world, permanent relationships with Krishna. And so a relationship is valuable from the spiritual point of view when it's centered around Krishna. Therefore, relationships between devotees are very valuable. But because Krishna is the center, it helps us to connect with Krishna. But they have no relationship with anyone. They are just sitting there waiting. So mostly, Prabhupada said, they come back to this material world. They are practically on the liberated platform, and they become great yogis or whatever, and they start to open hospitals and to give charity, to be active. They come back. So that is what Prabhupada explains, that it's not a natural position, the soul, to be in the Brahmajyoti. It's the border between the material world and the spiritual world. And they cannot go to the spiritual world because you need bhakti for that. You need to develop your relationship with Krishna. But they have put the first step, liberation from material suffering, but then the ananda is missing. Ananda means we get from our relationship with Krishna. We please Krishna, and Krishna makes us the soul ecstatic. That is another position, much better. Okay?
Thank you. So you said that when there is no work, there is no opportunity to serve.
Yeah.
And so in the material world, we have a material body, so we can use it in Krishna's service. And in the spiritual world, we have spiritual body. So in Brahmajyoti, it's like there is no body or there is subtle body.
Well, there is Sadashiva is there. Sadashiva is Vishnu Tattva, that is the source of all the Shivas in all the universes. And when Gopkumar came, he was in this Brahmajyoti, very effulgent, and suddenly he hears Harinam, chanting of Krishna's names, and he sees a bull coming. And on that bull is Lord Shiva with all his followers. And Gopkumar said, what are you doing? Why are you doing Harinam in the Brahmajyoti? And so that we do Harinam to liberate all this impersonalism. Anyway, so that they can continue and develop bhakti. So yeah, that's the compassion of Lord Shiva. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Jaya Prabhupada.